I never expected my father, a millionaire, to be humiliated as a beggar on my wedding day. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun was bright, the flowers smelled like sweet hope, but that was all shattered in an instant. I stood there, in my white dress, my heart racing. People whispered and pointed. My father, the man I admired, the man who held the family together, was on his knees, begging for change. His suit was dusty, frayed at the edges. His eyes, once sharp and commanding, were wild and lost. In that moment, the crowd around us gasped, the air thick with disbelief. I felt my breath hitch in my throat. This was supposed to be a day of joy, a promise of love. But here was my father, reduced to a mere shadow of himself. My heart pounded against my ribcage. Was this some sort of cruel joke? There he was, a beggar, while I stood there as the bride, dressed to the nines but feeling empty. I glimpsed my mother in the distance, her hands trembling at her sides, her face pale and drawn. She had always been my rock, but today, she too looked shattered. My friends were frozen in shock, their smiles fading one by one. My heart ached for the man who had always been my hero. He had built empires, made promises. How could he be here, begging? It made no sense. I wanted to run to him, to understand why this was happening. What had brought him to his knees? A murmur swept through the crowd. I could see the judge looking confused, shifting nervously on the podium. People were clicking their phones, capturing his disgrace for the world to see. Invisible hands tightened around my throat. The sound of a coin clinking into a cup echoed around me, like a taunt. My vision blurred with tears, then, I saw something flash in my father's eyes. Was it shame? Desperation? In that instant, I felt a strange mixture of pity and anger. How could he let this happen? I stood paralyzed, caught between love and confusion. The weight of the moment pressed down hard. Was this the beginning of the end for our family? Did he lose everything, and why? And as the crowd's whispers grew louder, I realized my wedding wasn't just a celebration anymore. It was spiraling into a horrifying spectacle. My hands trembled, and my heart raced dangerously fast. The world around me began to blur, the laughter turning to silence, the joy to fear. What now? What would I do? How could I reclaim this day from ruins? What secrets lay behind my father's sudden fall from grace? My mind raced with questions, each one heavier than the last. I felt the ground shift beneath me, threatening to swallow everything in its path. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As I stood there, rooted to the spot, my vision swam dangerously. The world around me felt like a scene from a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But somewhere deep inside me, a flicker of determination sparked. I couldn't stay paralyzed in my white dress while my father suffered. The crowd's murmurs faded into a distant roar as I took a trembling step forward, an act of defiance against the chaos that engulfed us. That I could see the despair etched into my father's features as he looked up, meeting my eyes for a brief moment. There was a confusing mix of recognition and regret in his gaze, a silent acknowledgement of everything we once shared before this moment shattered our world. The urge to save him swelled within me, a powerful wave. Dad. I called out, my voice breaking through the stillness as I rushed towards him. Each step felt heavy, laden with expectation and fear. Would he even acknowledge me, or was he already too far gone? I knelt beside him, desperate to understand. What's happening? Please, tell me. He recoiled slightly, as if he were a fallen bird and I was threatening his fragile wings. You shouldn't be here, Emma. It's too late for me, he murmured, his voice hoarse and cracked. I could hardly breathe. The anguish in his words sliced through me. Too late. Don't say that. The warmth of tears streamed down my cheeks. I reached out, my hand resting gently on his shoulder, grounding myself in the hope that he still recognized me as his daughter. We can figure this out together. Please. Just talk to me. Around us, people whispered and pointed. My mother was on the periphery, her face a distorted mask of worry and distress. She had always been the pillar of strength, and now, she looked shattered, as if the weight of the world had fallen upon her frail shoulders. I turned my gaze back to my father, who seemed momentarily lost in thought, a heavy shadow passing over his features. Emma, he started, and my heart raced at the slightest flicker of resolve in his voice. I lost everything. Investments went south, debts piled up like a mountain I couldn't climb. There's nothing left, his admission sliced into me like a blade. I wanted to scream, to rage against the unfairness of it all. But most of all, I wanted to reach into the depths of his despair and pull him out. You're still my father, I pleaded, desperate for him to hold on to that truth. You taught me how to fight. You taught me to stand up. Don't lose faith. Now that I could feel the crowd thinning a little, curiosity giving way to a sense of unease. As some people snapped photos, others started to step back, realizing they were witnessing something vulnerable, heart-wrenching. A few murmurs of sympathy began to circulate, fractures of humanity amidst the chaos. I saw a woman step forward, her eyes red, as she dropped a handful of coins into my father's cup, her act so simple yet profoundly kind. For a moment, as he looked up at her with deep gratitude, I clung to that act of unexpected kindness like a lifeline. It reminded me that even in the darkest moments, small glimmers of light could shine through. Perhaps this was the first step not just for my father, but for me. Let's go home, I urged him, my voice firm but tender. We'll figure this out together. You won't face this alone. My heart raced as emotions twirled around us, neither of us knowing the true weight of what was about to unfold. But just as hope began to bloom, a woman's voice rose above the crowd like thunder, piercing through the air. Emma. Is that your father? I heard a rumor he's lost everything overnight, hasn't he? The hostility in her words wrapped around me like a noose, and I felt the eyes of the crowd turn toward us, judgmental and prying. In that moment, I realized the depth of our unraveling. My father's fall had laid bare not just our family secrets, but the vulnerability of our entire existence. This wasn't just about my father, it was about all of us caught in this whirlwind of shame, heartbreak, and vulnerability. As I wrestled with the chaos in my mind, holding onto my father's hand, the earth began to shift. Again beneath me. I had to protect him, protect us, but I knew this was just the beginning. The threads of our family were unraveling. What more was yet to come? And the most frightening question loomed: could I truly discern the truth behind the shadows lurking in my father's failure? Just as dread washed over me, my phone buzzed in my pocket, the screen lighting up with a message that would alter everything. The beeping of my phone echoed in my ears like a distant gunshot, pulling me away from the chaos unfolding in front of me. I hesitated, caught in a web of uncertainty. Did I dare look? Did I want to risk another blow to my fragile heart? It was impossible to ignore, and yet I felt like a shipwrecked sailor grasping at flotsam in a storm-tossed sea. With a trembling hand, I extracted my phone from my pocket. The screen illuminated the message, its sharpness contrasting with the surrounding murmurings. It was from an unknown number, but the words branded themselves into my memory. I know why your father lost everything. Meet me. I can help. A shudder passed through me. Who was this person? What could they possibly know that I didn't? The weight of my father's shame crushed me, but the flicker of hope ignited by the message felt intoxicating. I glanced at my father, and my heart shattered again. His eyes were dim with defeat, but the moment he caught my gaze, a fleeting spark of love crossed his features. I couldn't let despair consume us both. What is it, Emma? He asked, his voice barely a whisper, as if he sensed the storm brewing within me. There was something wavering in his tone, but I knew I couldn't voice my thoughts just yet. Just a message, I replied, my voice hoarse. I needed time to process what it meant. Nothing important. Let's just go home, he urged again, each word heavier than the last. I don't want this embarrassment. I can't face anyone. Before I could respond, my mother's voice cut through, laden with quivering distress as she stepped closer, her beautiful features marred by strain. "Emma. We need to leave. Now." Her eyes darted nervously to my father, the shadows of our crumbling foundation spilling over her resolve. "Please, for everyone's sake." My heart pounded as I saw the unease in her expression. It dawned on me that we were not just dealing with my father's disgrace, but the repercussions it cast upon all our lives. I could feel the crowd's weight bearing down on us like a suffocating fog, and I realized that going home was not a solution but a denial of the truth lurking below the surface. Determined, I shook my head. "Not yet. I need to understand. All of this, it's tied to something bigger, something we haven't uncovered." At that, my father turned to me, the desperation in his eyes revealing how far he had fallen. No. There's nothing left but pain. I don't want you to get hurt because of me." The crowd shifted, whispers began to swirl like a cyclone around us, compared to the stillness I desperately craved. The woman who had taunted me earlier inquired again, her voice laced with malice. "So, is it true? The mighty millionaire reduced to this? Can't even provide for his daughter on her special day?" I felt the hot rage bubbling within me, a fire fueled by the injustices of the situation. Why were we standing here, battered in our dignity, while such cruelty danced around us? But just as I prepared my response, ready to lash out against those cruel words, the message on my phone flickered again in my peripheral vision, igniting a different kind of determination within me. I took a deep breath and said, "I don't know your story, but everyone has a breaking point. You think you're superior, but you don't understand what he's been through." Silence swallowed the murmurs, as the crowd fell still. Then something shifted. Sunlight broke through the clouds overhead, casting a golden hue that illuminated my father's weary face. In that moment, I felt a surge of empathy wash over me, not just for my father but for every single soul here wondering at our spectacle. "We're all human," I emphasized, my voice making its way into the frozen air, "and we all struggle." Just as I began to feel empowered, a commotion erupted behind me. I turned to see a man pushing through the crowd, his face familiar but obscured in my turmoil. It was Daniel, my childhood friend who had just returned from abroad. His eyes scanned the scene, finally locking onto mine with an urgency that sent a shiver down my spine. "Emma!" he yelled, his voice steady amid the chaos. "We need to talk." I know what's really going on. Hope and dread collided within me, amplifying the rush of emotions that threatened to overwhelm. I glanced at my father, then my mother, who looked utterly lost, held captive in a narrative we were no longer directing. There it was, a new twist, a different path that could either lead us closer to understanding or pull us deeper into despair. "What do you know, Daniel?" I asked, my heart racing as I wondered if this could finally unravel the truth that would either save us or destroy what remained of our family. "Please." I beckoned him closer, feeling as though the very ground under our feet could vanish at any moment. "Tell me." And in that breathless, suspended moment, with the weight of the world draped over us, the potential for everything to come crashing down loomed ever closer. The crowd was thick with tension, drawn into our orbit as though we were the center of an unseen storm. Daniel approached, his expression a complicated mixture of concern and urgency. He reached me, and for a fleeting moment, I felt a warmth in his presence, a foundation I had relied upon for years, now tangled with the debris of my shattered reality. His eyes darted to my father, who stood still, as if waiting for the ground to swallow him whole. I could almost hear his heart beating in the silence between us, heavy with the weight of his failures. "Emma, listen to me," Daniel implored, urgency spilling through his words. "What I know isn't just gossip. It's about your father's business, about everything that happened suddenly." My mother interjected, her voice barely a whisper, laced with a tremor that sent chills down my spine. "We don't want to hear any more lies, Daniel. This is enough. We're not a spectacle for your amusement." But I could see the crack forming in her resolve, the way her shoulders sagged under the burden of grief and shame, and I knew this conversation had to happen. I turned to her, hoping to find shared strength in our troubled bond. "Mom, I need to know." "We all do. Please." The crowd seemed to breathe in tandem with us, mere spectators hanging on to our every word. Daniel nodded, and I felt a flutter of hope trying to wedge its way through the despair. "Okay. Your dad, he was sabotaged. It wasn't just a bad investment or misplaced trust. There were forces working against him, people who wanted him to fail, he explained. The ground beneath me felt unsteady, as if the truth were a wave threatening to wash me over. What do you mean? Who? The question fell from my lips, raw and desperate. Finance is a brutal game, he continued, his tone grave. It was beyond his control. Someone manipulated the market in a way that specifically targeted his firm. I've been digging, trying to find the pieces. People have talked. They mentioned shady deals, betrayals, and I think it ties back to your father's old associate. As he spoke, my father's gaze became distant, haunted, that shadow of despair shifted into something darker. My chest clenched as I recognized the look on his face, the shame mingled with painful memories. I can't change what already happened, he murmured, his voice cracking. I can't face them again. I don't even know who to trust anymore. Dad, please, you fought hard, I urged, stepping closer. This wasn't just you. You were betrayed. We deserve to uncover the truth together. The adrenaline coursed through me, igniting a spark I hoped would burn bright enough to guide us through the darkness. But just as that glimmer of resolve flickered, a figure emerged from the crowd, stepping forward with an air of authority that silenced the whispers. A woman in an impeccably tailored suit, her hair tied back in a no-nonsense bun, her presence commanding. Emma, she intoned, her voice cutting through the tension. You need to be careful about who you trust. Not everyone in this crowd has your best interests at heart, and your father has enemies you cannot even begin to fathom. That I stood frozen, the weight of her words crashing down upon me. The world around me felt deceptive suddenly, like a warm facade masking a chilling underbelly. I felt a spark of anger mingled with fear. Who was she to threaten me, to cast shadows over my family's already fragile standing? Who are you? I managed, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Allegra Chen. I've been watching the situation unfold, she replied coolly, her eyes locking onto mine with a fierce intensity. What your father experienced wasn't mere bad luck, it's connected to larger players in the game. And if you intend to pursue this, you must prepare for battles unforeseen. The crowd shifted, lips whispering frantically, new questions brewing. What did she know? What kind of game were we embroiled in? Yet amid the confusion and budding fear, a feeling of solidarity surged within me. I clutched my phone tightly, the message still seething in my mind. Then help us, I demanded despite the uncertainty clawing at my throat. If this goes deeper, we cannot face it alone. We need answers, and if my father has enemies, then I'll stand by his side. Daniel glanced at me, and for a brief moment, his reassuring smile broke through the tense air. But it was quickly overshadowed by the rising tide of alarm. Allegra stepped back slightly, scrutinizing me. You may get more than answers, Emma. Sometimes, uncovering the truth comes with a price one you might not be prepared to pay. As her words hung in the air, heavy with implications, there was an unsettling shift within the crowd. The tension tightened, pulsating like a heartbeat, each person carrying stories of their own mirrored struggles or unshakable judgments. Then, just as I was about to respond, a disturbance rippled through the gathering. A man stumbled forward, his expression frantic, and as he neared, recognition clawed at my memory. It was my father's former associate, the one Daniel had just mentioned. Fear and anger crackled through the air as he locked eyes with my father, desperation spilling from his lips. You have to listen. It's not what you think. But before he could finish, the crowd buzzed with confusion, uncertainty casting shadows over every once assured heart. My father's face turned pale, his past confronting him anew. I could see him straining against the helplessness that always came flooding back. And then it struck me, we were standing at the precipice of a truth riddled with shadows, teetering between revelation and ruin. All eyes were on us, and as the tension of the moment swelled, I knew that the choices we would soon make could either bind us together or tear us further apart. It felt inevitable that this disturbance would lead to an explosion of secrets. Stop! I shouted, my voice breaking through the whispers. Time froze. What do you know? As he began to speak, something deep within me shifted, an unsettling premonition of the chaos yet to unfurl, filling the air with the charged anticipation of raw, painful truths waiting just on the brink of revelation. The air felt electric as I stood, heart pounding, awaiting the truth the frantic man was about to unravel. Shadows danced across the crowd's faces, and the tension grew taut, like a wire stretched to its breaking point. "What do you know?" I repeated, urgency lacing my voice. He swallowed hard, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead, a man trapped within the ever-spiraling chaos of our lives. "Emma, you don't understand," he replied, panic punctuating his words. "The investment wasn't just a mistake, it was orchestrated. Someone wanted your father to fail, to lose everything." My heart sank further as I caught a glimpse of my father's expression, a mix of disbelief and a desperate plea for clarity. "Who?" I pressed, eyes narrowing in determination. "I can't," he began, but before he could continue, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Stop this nonsense." Allegra interjected, her eyes flaring with authority. "If he knows something, now is the time to say it." "We are running out of time." "Time for what?" I asked, frustration rising. "To dive deeper into this madness?" "Time to prepare for the unexpected," she fired back, her demeanor unyielding. "Many are involved. Your father's failure was only the beginning. Trust me, they will come for anyone who tries to uncover the treachery hidden behind those closed doors." Each word she uttered felt like a thread weaving a deeper bond between my father and me, but also stretching tight across the chasm of fear that loomed between us. Above the gathering's murmurs, I could feel the vibrational pulse of uncertainty in my bones. This was no longer merely about a business failure, we were now entangled in a web woven with deceit and danger. The former associate searched my father's eyes, seemingly caught between seeking forgiveness and confessing guilt. "I swear, Marcus, they plotted against you. Even I didn't know until it was too late." My father's brows furrowed, the fight draining from his body. You were part of it, weren't you? You took their side. Only because I was forced. You think you were the only one caught in their web?" His eyes darted nervously to the crowd. "I came to help you, to warn you, but it's already far worse than you can imagine." I felt anger boiling inside me, a desire to confront the man who had once stood by my father's side, yet I knew this moment was larger than our personal conflicts. "So, then, what do we do?" I directed my question at Allegra. "This is our life, our family. We have to act." She regarded me with an intensity that sent a shiver along my spine. "Action will invite consequences, especially if you choose to pursue the truth. But if you do, you need to be prepared to protect your family at all costs. There are layers of corruption beyond imagination here." Doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind, but determination surged through me. I glanced at Daniel, whose calm composure was the only anchor amidst this raging storm. I thought of the life I had dreamed of, the wedding I had pictured where only joy surrounded us, not chaos and betrayal. "I will face it," I declared, my voice ringing out. "I won't let this destroy us. Not again." But as I stood, conviction radiating from my very core, I sensed an undercurrent of fear encasing us all. My father's face reflected a tangle of pride and fear, and it terrified me to think what lay on the other side of our decisions. For a brief moment, a flicker of hope emerged, a glimmer of light in the shadows. Perhaps if we pressed together, we could reclaim what had been stolen from us. I grasped my father's hand, feeling the slightest tremor in his grip. "We don't have to fight alone," I encouraged, glancing at Daniel, who nodded in silent agreement. Just then, the tension snapped as chaos erupted behind us, the crowd shifting, and I turned to see a group of individuals storming toward us. Their demeanor spelled trouble, steely-eyed expressions radiating hostility. They were here not to listen but to silence, agents of the very forces that sought to destroy my family. As adrenaline surged, I prepared myself for a confrontation I had not anticipated. In that heartbeat of revelation, I realized we were about to unearth something much darker than mere betrayal. I had chosen to stand up, to face the storm. But little did I know that choices forged in anger often yield consequences we never expect. And just as the first hostile voices erupted into the open air demanding answers, a figure stepped from the shadows behind the intruders, someone I recognized all too well. It was the one person I had hoped to never see again. My mother's past was resurfacing, and with it, the truth I had not wanted to hear. The weight of the moment crashed down, an unexpected collision of old alliances and buried secrets revealing the heart of darkness that had plagued us. We were not merely fighting for our family's honor, we were about to confront a legacy entwined with despair. Emma, my mother's voice trembled across the distance, her expression stricken, and as I turned to look at her, the world around me spiraled into a realm of uncertainties, where the bonds of love and the chains of truth intertwined in a web of despair. All I could feel was the icy grip of an impending storm ready to unleash its fury. Panic surged within me as I took in the sight of her, a haunting silhouette that stirred a tumult of emotions I thought I had suppressed long ago. My mother, the woman whose absence had left scars on my heart, stood defiantly at the edge of chaos, as if summoned by the very torment we had begun to unveil. "Emma," she called again, desperation laced in her tone while the storm swirled around us. Her eyes flickered to Daniel for just a moment, a silent accounting of the man who now stood at my side. Did she recognize the gentle strength he offered, or was she still trapped within the shadows of her past? "What are you doing here?" I managed to spit out, shaken by her sudden appearance. The weight of her presence felt heavier than all the doubts and fears that had accumulated within me. Around us, the crowd had quieted, tension hanging palpably in the air. "Please, you need to listen," she implored, her voice wavering. "You don't understand. Things are what?" I interrupted, my heart racing. Anger blazed through me like wildfire. "You abandoned us. You chose your escape over us. Now you want to swoop in and play the martyr?" After everything, the hurt registered clearly in her eyes, yet behind it lay fragments of hurt that seemed to tie her to the chaos before us. "Emma, I never wanted to leave. Stop," I yelled as the incoming figures closed in on us, their intentions written across their faces. My mother's position between us and the gathering threat raised damnation in my throat. "You're the one who needs to listen. We're being hunted here." Unwavering, Allegra stepped forward, undeterred by the burgeoning conflict. "They'll know everything soon enough," she whispered, her voice a steadying presence. "If we don't act, we will be swallowed by the darkness that surrounds us." I glanced at my father, silent yet visibly shaken. His eyes darted from my mother to the crowd of menacing figures. He appeared a man bound by his choices, carrying the weight of more than just our family's legacy. "What do they want?" he rasped, the timbre of his voice barely breaking through the tension. "Your reckoning, Marcus," one of the intruders spoke, a sinister smirk splashed across his face. "And her return only complicates matters." The realization pooled thickly in my stomach. They knew her, the enemies of our family were tied to her. I shot a glance back at my mother, searching for answers that eluded me, confusion spiraling into dread. "Why weren't you honest with me?" I pressed, half afraid of the answer. "What did you do?" Tears glimmered in my mother's eyes, but she attempted to stand tall. "I was trying to protect you all. There are things I couldn't share without risking more than just my past." Her voice trailed off, haunted by shadows I couldn't see. "That's the problem, isn't it?" A dark-eyed man stepped forward, his tone chilling. "Secrets always hold more power than truth." "Right, Emma. Stop. All of you," I shouted, the urgency draining the breath from my chest. "This isn't just about you or your vendettas." I turned to my mother, desperate for her to understand how much was at stake. "Why did you really leave? Did you betray us?" The looming threat tightened around us as I braced for her response, expecting another evasive answer, but all that came was a shaky breath that poured out her truth like an open wound. "That I was involved in terrible things that could have harmed you," she admitted, the vulnerability in her voice shocking me into silence. "It was never about abandoning you, it was about keeping you safe from the darkness I created." "I thought I was saving you," pain lanced through me, her words digging deeper than I imagined. The very foundation of my childhood trembled beneath me as the twisted threads of deceit unraveled into something tangible. "What darkness? What did you do?" "I didn't want you to inherit this. I thought I could erase it, wipe it clean," she choked, anguish etching lines across her face. A sudden blast of laughter erupted from the nearest assailant. "Too late for that now. You're just as much a part of this as the rest of us. You cannot erase blood. Just as his malice echoed, a small squeak pierced the tumult. My heart plummeted when a child and innocent emerged from behind the man, her eyes wide and shimmering, an unintentional victim of this legacy. A rush of instinct took over. "We need to get her out of here," I shouted. The child's purity, her oblivion to the horrors mounting around her, ignited a spark of resolve. In that moment, I realized that our battle was not solely ours. It was for every life affected by our choices. "Emma. Wait." Allegra grasped my arm, but I shook off her grip, determined. "You're not ready for this." "Neither are we," I countered, stepping toward the child. "But I won't let fear decide for me any longer." My mother grabbed my hand, a silent plea mingled with her desperation. "We can find a way to protect everyone, but not without your help." Just then, the ground shook under a commotion from behind the incoming figures, and chaos spiraled into a whirlwind, a sign of danger lurking just beneath the surface of our truths. I could feel the impending storm surge, and with it came the weight of the realization that our struggles, though steeped in pain, may still tether us together as a family. But as I steadied myself, preparing for whatever lay ahead, the child turned to me, her innocent face marred by uncertainty. "Are we going to be okay?" she asked, and for the first time, dread wrapped itself tightly around my heart, filling me with the fear that perhaps I could not shield her or anyone else from the shadows closing in. And as the circle of darkness tightened, a shocking turn of events erupted from the crowd. Truths I hadn't yet fathomed began to surface, promising a storm even my wildest fears couldn't anticipate. The ominous atmosphere hung thicker with each passing second as I locked eyes with the child. Her wide gaze, innocent yet hauntingly aware of the turmoil surrounding her, sliced through the chaos. The world around us transformed, the menacing shadows bore down like a loaded weight, but in that moment, her small voice pulled me back from the precipice of despair. "Are we going to be okay?" she repeated, her lips trembling. The question hung in the air, echoing my own uncertainties. Would any of us truly be okay? I took a breath, steeling myself against the tide rising within me. "Yes," I replied, but the word tasted like ash. The panic that swelled in my chest threatened to erupt if I didn't find a way to calm it. Allegra's grip on my arm tightened once more, shaking her head as if to say we should flee. "We're not equipped for this," she hissed, glancing at the encroaching threats. There was a fire in her spirit, yet it was rooted in fear. I had seen that look before, that instinct to run when the world became too heavy to bear. But I couldn't retreat now. Not when lives were at stake, especially not this child's. That I glanced at my mother, the truths she had just unveiled swirling like a whirlwind in my mind. "What do you know about the darkness you created?" I asked, the urgency in my voice escalating. "More importantly, how do we stop it?" "Sometimes, to face it means confronting your past," she whispered, looking at the ground as if she could undo the pain buried there. "I thought we could outrun it, but it always catches up." Her eyes flickered with fear and regret, raw memories etched in every line of her face. "Maybe you can start by telling us who they are," I yelled, frustration bleeding into my voice. "You can't keep hiding stuff now. Not when they're closing in on us." "What happened when you left?" my father added, his tone eerily calm against the surging tides of a brewing storm. "Who were you protecting us from, Elena?" Just then, the darkness shifted like a living thing, and the figure in the front, the dark-eyed man with the chilling smirk, let out a laugh that echoed through the tension. "Protective instincts are charming," he taunted, "but they won't save you." "Stop!" I exclaimed, taking a defiant step closer, but with it came a sudden sense of peril. "Enough with the mind games. What do you want with my family? Who are you?" "Family bonds are beautiful, aren't they?" The man's interest piqued, the mockery spilling from his lips. "But like every family, they're susceptible to betrayal. You should ask your mother what sacrifices she is willing to make." "Betrayal." The word struck me like a dagger, pain seeping into my heart as I cast an accusatory glare at my mother. I needed answers before we could move forward, yet I feared the truth more than the threat looming above us. The dark-eyed man nodded toward the encroaching shadows. "You don't know half of what she's capable of. She could save you if she decides to." "How do you know this?" Daniel interjected, stepping in front of me. His protective instinct was admirable, but today felt like one brutal test after another, eroding all resolve. We won't be pawns in whatever game this is, the smirk broadened, revealing a predatory edge. Ah, but you already are. You may have forgotten just how entwined your lives are. Before I could process his words, another figure emerged from behind the crowd. My heart sank when I recognized her, a familiar face framed by darkness, a friend morphed into an adversary. Alyssa, my childhood companion, stood at the helm of them all, her face twisted in resentment. "Emma," she called, her voice tight with bitterness. "You should have listened when we warned you. You, of all people, should know to keep family matters private." "Alyssa? You're here?" Confusion swirled around me, competing with my emotions, her betrayal a bitter reminder of my past. "Why are you working with them?" "Because some of us understand that survival comes with sacrifices. Not everyone can stay blind to the truths you cloak with innocence, Emma." She gestured dismissively to my mother. "She picked the dark path, and you followed her. Enough." My resolve hardened, coursing through me like a fire igniting within. "You don't know what I'm capable of, and neither does she." I shot a glance at my mother, her fearful eyes pleading with the ghosts of what could have been. "We can break this. We need to stop the cycle." As I took a step forward, a sudden jolt of energy pierced through the ground, shocking everyone into silence. The sky above us split with a roar, and lightning illuminated the desperate faces of our family, the crowd of threats, and the child who stood innocently caught in our unfolding nightmare. "What was that?" someone whispered in awe, but I remained fixed on my mother. "Now or never," I thought. "Tell me everything." Her breath faltered, but suddenly, the ground beneath my feet began to tremble. As everyone steadied themselves against the gyrating earth, a new revelation tore free, accompanied by the crack of thunder echoing overhead. The sound seized our shared breath, filling the air with dread and anticipation. As the vibrations intensified, a familiar voice emerged from the chaos, a voice that shattered everything I believed to be true. "Emma, darling," it purred, the dark figure of a woman emerging from the storm. "I believe it's time we talked." And just like that, the darkness beckoned, pulling us into a world of uncertainty deeper than most of us had ever known. The storm swirled around us, an unseen force thickening the air with tension. I could scarcely breathe as the woman stepped forward, her silhouette framed by the chaotic lightning. Every heartbeat pulsed louder in my ears as I searched for recognition in her features. With each step she took, I felt the weight of my decisions and the invisible threads weaving through bloodlines and secrets. "Mother?" The word escaped my lips, barely a whisper, but it echoed across the chasm of silence that had fallen. The transformation of the storm around us seemed to mirror my inner turmoil as my heart clamored for answers. What was she doing here? Why now? "Emma," she said with a voice smooth yet edged with an unsettling opulence. "I've waited a long time for this moment." She looked at my mother, her expression a mixture of condescension and pity. "You can't protect your children forever, Elena." "That I thought I had lost you." My mother stepped forward, tears brimming in her eyes, but that look of desperation turned to one of anger as she reclaimed her ground. "You shouldn't be here. You don't have any right to interfere." "Ah, but I do. Didn't you teach her that family shapes destiny?" The woman countered, her voice dripping with an unsettling sense of authority. "Our destinies are woven together. Every choice we make echoes through eternity." Alyssa stood with her arms crossed, her gaze flickering between the two women. "What is this? You expect us to believe you care about her? You abandoned us." She stepped toward the figure, rage simmering through her. "Abandonment is a choice, dear," my mother's mother replied coldly, barely acknowledging Alyssa. "Sometimes, it's the wisest one." Her gaze shifted back to me, piercing and full of knowing. "But it's time for truth. You stand on the threshold of change, Emma. Embrace your heritage." "Change?" I echoed incredulously, battling outrage and desperation. "What are you talking about? My heritage has brought nothing but chaos." Perhaps the storm around us was a reflection of all our histories colliding. Perhaps, at this very moment, we were positioned on a knife's edge between violence and redemption. "What's to come cannot be avoided," she continued, her voice effortlessly captivating and haunting at once. "You must choose, embrace the darkness or shun it. You already harbor its seeds within you, seeds. I took a step back, disoriented by the unveiling of destiny and the pull of ancestral loyalty. You can't be serious. I won't become like you. You're the very thing I've fought against, but you're missing the point, my dear. Every choice shapes your narrative. Her gaze shifted toward the dark-eyed man, who remained a steady shadow at her side. Would you like to know what moves him? The power you could command. In that instant, a flicker of hope ignited dangerously behind the darkness, a promise of strength I had never considered before. As the tempest around us roared in response, the vibrations of possibility surged through me. But that spark quickly fizzled under the crushing weight of dread and confusion. No! I shouted, defiance inflating my lungs. I refuse to accept this twisted path. I shape my own future. But even as the words left my mouth, doubt gnawed at the edges of my convictions. I felt trapped, linked to burdens that extended beyond my comprehension. Behind me, Allegra whispered, "Emma, think about it. What if there's a truth hidden in the chaos?" "Not this chaos," Daniel interjected. "It's all part of their game. Don't fall for it." The dark-eyed man smirked, eyes gleaming with malicious delight. "Do you see it, Emma? The choice is before you. All of this is a reflection of your own fears. But there's strength in knowing where you come from." Why mother's hand reached for me again, but this time, the safety I once found in her embrace felt heavy with betrayal. How could I believe her now? "You kept us in the dark, because I thought it was for the best," she pleaded, desperation embedded in her voice. "I was trying to protect you." From behind the figures, the child tugged at my coat, her gaze wide with confusion. "Are you really going to let them choose?" "For you, sweetheart," I breathed, kneeling to her level. "It's not that simple." "Sometimes it is," she replied with an unexpected wisdom that sliced through the chaos. "You have to find your own light." The truth of her words struck me so powerfully that I felt the ground shake again beneath my feet. Lightning cracked again, illuminating the faces around me, a motley tapestry of love, betrayal, and fear, but that was when everything shifted. A shriek of panic rang out from the crowd, drawing our attention away from the unfolding drama. An unseen force surged forth, a tangible wave of darkness, and chaos erupted as figures wavered, desperate to flee or perhaps to strike. "Demon!" Someone yelled, "It's coming!" In horror, I turned to see a monstrous silhouette rising behind us from the depths of the storm, a physical manifestation of all our fears and unresolved pain. My heart raced as I turned back toward my family, uncertainty and dread pooling low in my stomach. "Make your choice quickly, Emma," my mother urged, her voice barely audible over the clamor of rushing shadows. "We have little time." The storm raged, the air thick with energy crackling in a suffocating embrace, and my heart sank as I realized the truth looming over us. The echoes of our past were relentless, and I wasn't sure if I could face the choices ahead. Would I fight, or would I follow the darkness? And then, as the shadows tightened around us, I caught the child's eye once more. In her gaze, I saw the glimmer of hope, and in that moment, my heart made a desperate leap. Maybe, just maybe, the light could still break through. The chaos swirled around us, each moment soaked in fear and despair. My heart thudded mercilessly in my chest as I stood frozen, caught between ancestral expectations and the dark mass forming behind me. The storm's ferocity felt alive, as if it were mocking my turmoil. It echoed fates had been woven into the lives of my ancestors, but what of my own thread? "Emma, we have to move." Alyssa's voice pierced through the chaos, forcing me to refocus on her. Fear darkened her eyes, igniting a spark of urgency between us. "Now!" Before anything more could happen, a cry shattered the air, pulling my gaze back to the child. She had fallen to her knees, and an inexplicable worry washed over me. I reached for her, but a fast-moving shadow lunged in our direction. The dark-eyed man raised his hands, and the silhouette stilled mid-lunge, suspended in a fight against the tide of trepidation washing over us. "Your fear is palpable, Emma," he taunted, his voice smooth as silk, but sharp as a knife. "What will you do when faced with the nightmares you've tried so hard to escape? Will you let them consume you?" I clenched my jaw, defiance rising within me. "I won't let this define me." "Then make your choice." The dark man's voice resonated through the storm, his eyes glinting with excitement. as if anticipating the unfolding events. He gestured towards my mother and the woman who claimed to be my grandmother. Two sides, one split destiny. Which do you embrace, Emma? My mother shouted, desperation igniting her voice once more. The demon feeds on our inability to choose. We can't afford to hesitate, but as my thoughts raced, I felt tugged in two opposing directions, one tied to the fragile threads of familial loyalty, the other to an unquenchable desire for independence. Was I merely repeating the mistakes of the past, caught in a vicious cycle of fear and darkness? In the overwhelming noise, I glimpsed the child's trembling figure. You have to decide. You can't let them win. She shouted, a fierce conviction lacing her innocent words. With every ounce of courage she possessed, she reached for me, her tiny fingers clawing through the tempest that threatened to devour us all. It was a profound moment, as hope shone through the dark clouds. My instincts screamed for action, but doubts began swirling within me like leaves caught in the wind. I took a step forward, trying to break through the swirling fear that clung like a shroud around my heart. As I looked around, I caught sight of Alyssa, her fists clenched and eyes aflame with unwavering support. In her gaze, I witnessed a flicker of shared determination, igniting my own resolve. Emma, remember our pact. We choose together. The storm rumbled around us, warping the air and twisting the elements into a maddening cacophony. The shadows writhed as if recognizing the depth of our collective will. My mother's eyes met mine, a tempest of emotions hiding behind them. She wanted to protect me, but at what cost? And would her truths help me claim my own path? Join me, my grandmother urged, her voice silky and beguiling, yet I heard the undercurrent of desperation woven through it. You have no idea what awaits. Power beyond imagination, the weight of our legacy, power that has only led to suffering. I shot back, shaking my head. Too many sacrifices have already been made. I refuse to carry that burden, but the dark-eyed man chuckled, a sound that sent shivers racing down my spine. Do you think power is the enemy, or is it how one chooses to wield it? Isn't waiting in fear a choice in itself? Just then, a flash of lightning illuminated the gathering storm. I looked up and saw the monstrous figure beginning to dissolve, its form warring against the light seeping through the clouds. My heart raced, perhaps that spark within me could turn the tide. Emma. A voice thundered, a voice I hadn't expected to hear, cutting through the chaos like a beacon of revelation. My father stood there, drenched and disheveled, but with an unmistakable determination brewing in his expression. You're not alone in this. I may have been broken before, but I will fight for you. I gaped at him, disbelief melting into a blend of confusion and hope. Was this truly my father? The man I had thought long lost to the forces that shackled him? Dad, embrace the light together. He shouted, fists raising as if in fierce defiance against a world that had sought to keep him down. We've faced darkness before, each of us. But we rise together, remember that. And then, clarity struck anew. The threads of our destinies entwined, a tapestry woven through love, betrayal, pain, and a brighter future yearning to break free. Just as lightning clawed across the sky again, illuminating both past and present, I recognized that choice stood before me, not as a burden but as an opportunity. It was time to choose, but as I felt a surge of strength rise within me, the ground quaked violently as a new wave of shadows slammed down against our defiance. Everything trembled, twisting back into chaos, and darkness surged as the figures circled, monstrous tendrils reaching toward us from the abyss, and in that moment, just as I found my footing, a chilling scream pierced the air, echoing the ache of our fractured souls, and the child, who had been my guiding light, was swallowed by the arms of the encircling shadows. Panic erupted within me. No. No. My voice tore through the storm as I lunged forward, my heart pounding with the weight of what was lost, what might be lost if I did not act soon. The storm was far from over, and I knew chaos loomed, waiting to exploit my fears. In a heartbeat, choices had to be made, and the cost of staying silent now seemed unforgivable. I felt the darkness inching closer, encircling us, while the choice of light flickered dimly in the distance, and I would not lose another light. Not again. The storm raged on, each rumble of thunder mirroring the turmoil churning inside me. For a moment, everything froze. The child, lost, terrified, caught in the tempest that had spiraled so far out of control. The shadows reached for her, clawing, enveloping her in despair, and with each passing second, the cold grip of helplessness wrapped tighter around my heart. I screamed, my voice breaking through the chaos, almost lost against the howling winds. Instinctively, I surged forward, feeling the ground tremble beneath my feet. Without thinking, I pushed through the thick fog of shadows that snared her, forcing myself to remember the light of courage that had once ignited my spirit. You can't have her. In those breaths of desperation, I felt something deeper stir within me, a connection binding my family, my fears, my failures, and my hopes into a singular force strong enough to break the chains that bound us to the past. I stepped into the void, every heartbeat echoing the fractures in my family's legacy, but knowing that even the most broken things could be pieced back together. Emma, wait. My father shouted, panic lacing his voice, but I couldn't turn back. You don't know what you're facing. But I did. I had spent my whole life tiptoeing around truth, avoiding the shadows of our family's history, burying pain and resentment like ghosts beneath the surface. They had haunted me long enough. Now, it was time to stand at I and the chaos ahead. I locked eyes with the child, her small figure engulfed in shadows yet full of light. You have to hold on. I shouted, resolute as my heart raced with fierce conviction. You are braver than any darkness. Believe in your light. The shadows hesitated, fractures forming in their grip as they buckled against the force of my words. It was wild, but I felt it throughout my veins, a swell of energy coursing through my veins, a connection uniting my past with the present. Focusing on the warmth of my father's presence, the love that had endured despite everything, I raised my hands high above my head, and summoned everything I held dear, the memories, the pain, the love, the losses, together. I called to my family, fueled by a determination that pulsed inside my chest like a beacon in the storm. We fight together. What happened next felt like a waking dream. A rush of light surged from within me, an illumination sparking through the gloom, crawling forward to chase the shadows back. My father stood beside me, arm raised high, channeling everything he had once represented: his love, strength, and unconditional support. And behind us, I felt my mother pulling from her own reservoirs, the strength she had cultivated in the silence between us all these years surfacing in a powerful wave of defiance. The shadows screamed, shattering the stillness with their writhing cries, and I felt the combined strength of our fears pushed aside as love flooded toward the child, pulling her into our protective embrace. Alyssa stepped forward, unyielding, shouting words of unity. Daniel, steadfast by my side, shouted encouragements, and suddenly, it felt like our collective resolve melded into this undeniable force, placing us squarely in the funnel of light. Never again. I cried, voice rising above the chorus of monsters. We break this cycle, here and now. In a glorious explosion of brilliance, the darkness recoiled, fracturing like glass under a hammer of sunlight. I could see it in our eyes, the bonds formed through generations, each tethered heart learning from its mistakes, rising above the weight of despair toward an unfathomable light. The shadows evaporated, disintegrating into nothingness as if snuffed out by the spark of truth burning brightly in our souls. When the light faded, and the ground settled beneath our feet, I found ourselves witnesses of something unimaginable. The storm had cleared, leaving behind an emergent dawn, cascading light spilling across our faces like warm honey. The child stood in the center of it all, her eyes shimmering with gratitude and wonder. Breathless, I reached for her, pulling her into an embrace that felt deeply cathartic. She melted against me, a warm glow threading through the remnants of pain we had endured. The tears that battled at my eyes weren't just about loss, they were of redemption too. Are we okay now? She asked quietly, and my heart soared. Yes, I whispered through the cracks of my own recovery, feeling the weight of generations shifting. More than okay. As I pulled back, I looked around, taking in my family, the fractured pieces solidifying into a bond that felt unbreakable. My mother wiped tears from her cheeks, a new sense of strength radiating through her as she stood between my father and me, arms entwined. Emma, she said softly, every word a part of her confession, I'm so proud. We've weathered the storm together. No more running from what hurts us. I've hidden from my own fears, I admitted, letting the warmth of acceptance envelope me. But together, I see now that we have the strength to face anything. The dark-eyed man, no longer a formidable shadow but an echo of past fears, vanished into dew upon the grass before us. The storm that had terrorized us became just a fleeting reminder of the choices that define us. That I love you both, I said, looking between my mother and father, feeling the edges of everything begin to smooth with healing. And I refuse to let the past dictate our future. As the dawn broke, lining the horizon with warmth and promise, I felt a fire of hope igniting within me. In that moment, there was no longer the fear of shadows lurking. We emerged together, stronger and more beautiful than before, bonded through love and resilience. And just as the first rays of light spilled across the sky, illuminating everything around us, I whispered, from this day forward, we will carve our own path, one filled with light.